Today's discussion will be presented in 3 sections since we are recording the session for a radio broadcast on Federal News Radio 1500 AM. Feel free to post questions and comments during the session, and we'll try to get them answered online. We're particularly pleased to welcome our moderator, Tom Temin, the host of the Federal Drive on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com. Let me turn over the reins to Tom to begin today's discussion.
Welcome, and thanks for joining us. Our guests today are Julie Brill, the Manager of Work-Life Leadership and Executive Development Policy at the Office of Personnel Management. Philip Lucier is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for the Bureau of Human Resources. Jeff Marudian is the Assistant Secretary of Administration at the Transportation Department. Tawanda Brooks, the Chief Human Capital Officer at Housing and Urban Development. And Steve Doborowski, Principal for Thought Leadership and Advisory Services at Cornerstone On Demand. And why don't we start with the topic of employee viewpoint engagement scores, that survey that comes out every year. I'd like to ask the panel, and we'll go right down the panel, is how you use those scores when they come out, other than for publicity that you can't control. So Julie, why don't we start with you?
Okay, yeah, sure.
The source of those scores.
I was going to say OPM does administer that survey, and they're coming up on the next administration, end of April, beginning of May. We take those scores, though, and pull out the engagement indices and items and put them on a website, Unlock Talent, so that all agencies and all federal employees can view those by the 3 indices: leaders lead, supervision, and intrinsic work experiences, and see where they are compared to other agencies. And then we also have a community of practice where we post promising practices, tools, resources, webinars, blogs, all kinds of materials that agencies can use as they're taking their scores and working on improving and changing them. And so we love to highlight all the agencies as they're developing tools. We have toolkits that Department of Commerce has recently developed for all their managers, breaking down those scores and what to do with that data. So there's a lot on there. And then something else that we've recently released is a course on maximizing employee engagement. It's a free online course on hru.gov. And agencies are taking that, having all their managers and supervisors use that, and it helps them understand their scores better.
Okay, and Phil, at State Department, how do you take that material and run with it?
Well, great, Tom. Thanks for having us all here today. And so what we do is we take the data that Julie and her team provides, bring it into State Department, and then what we do is break it up into, we have about 30, I would call them composite bureaus that are each led by an assistant secretary, and we break each bureau up and we share their score. And one of the first things we do, though, is to build the business case for it. One of the things we did, interestingly enough, this year is the first time we decided to try to line this up, is we put each bureau's score, on a sheet of paper, and beside that we showed attrition rates. So we tried to show, first of all, we wanted to see, is there a correlation? What is the business case for having high engagement? And sure enough, what we found in almost 90% of the cases is that high engagement meant low attrition. So it really builds the business case for them. So then what we do is we share their scores. We ask them to share it with their employees, and then engagement works from both the bottom up and the top down. So we wanted leadership involved, but we also wanted the employees to get involved. We collected up best practices. We share them on a website. We distribute them to all the employees, and then trying to make essentially a competition out of it. There's a need for engagement. It leads to high productivity and more high morale, and work gets done in a more efficient manner. So I think it was really effective, at least bringing it together. We look forward to the 2016 survey is about to kick off, and have there been improvements, and we'll share that as well.
All right, interesting. So that competition idea among the bureaus, I like that one. Jeff, what about the Transportation Department?
Sure. Thanks, Tom. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be here on this important subject. We really feel very positively about the work that we're doing in employee engagement, and we use the scores both as an opportunity to learn and to celebrate, to learn areas where we can be strengthening our engagement work throughout the agency, and to celebrate the incredible work that we know our employees and our managers are doing across our entire organization. We also use the collection of the data as an opportunity to directly engage with our employees, both here in our headquarters building and throughout the country. We're an agency of 55,000 employees, half of which are throughout the country in different regions. And so we use the opportunity to connect with employees across the board, to connect with our management across the board, and really engage directly on a very granular level about what the data are telling us. And so it's something that we take very seriously, but for us it's an opportunity to celebrate.
So it provides a touch point at which you can re-engage with management to management almost also.
Absolutely. We look at it as a touch point, not just for management, but for our employees all the way across the organization.
Sure. And I know at Tawanda, at HUD, it's been something of interest all the way up to Secretary Castro.
Yes.
And you've had a program to really try to work on those scores. Tell us what's going on there.
Yes. Well, we saw the value in the survey, first of all, as something that we could use the data to really delve into it and use it as something that we could try to understand what employees were thinking. And so first we wanted to see and get employees to participate. We saw this as a large opportunity for us to get employees to participate. So first of all, we wanted to push them to participate. So we had a large campaign to get them to participate. And then once we got them to participate, we wanted them to understand that we were going to use the data. So we got a really big group together to look at the data, and we shared the data with everyone. We got Corporate Executive Board to review our data. They came in, went through the data with us.
You mean the company, CEB?
Yes,
Okay.
Corporate Executive Board, and walk through the data with us both in 14 and now in 15. They're going to walk through every program office data with us to come up with plans. So we didn't have just a departmental engagement plan. Each program office has an engagement plan specific to their organization. So it's not just, a generic plan for the organization. It's specific to those organizations. And it's the leaders lead, as Julie said, supervisors, and the employee intrinsic work experience. So it's about conversation and relationship building, and it's about the culture. We're the Department of Opportunity. So it's really about the opportunity to build relationships with employees and increase that relationship and build on those relationships, and the opportunity to really think about the mission of the organization and what does it mean to attach the employee's mission and their responsibilities and duties to the overall organization.
All right, so I see these scores. They look like they're really a catalyst for a lot of activities. Now, Steve Dabrowski of Cornerstone, we should point out, you were a Fed, so you've seen this from both sides now,
Correct.
as the song goes. And
Yeah.
what do you see across government in the way people use these scores once they come out?
So I served a number of years as Director of Talent Management for a shared service center, and in that role, in that capacity, what I saw is the engagement measurement become more and more real for agencies. It was a survey that began and agencies started taking it more and more seriously. In fact, I think a lot of the folks at the table, some of their commitments in their performance review, engagement scores are part of it. I think what's interesting when you compare what's going on in the federal government, and it's not different than what's going on in the public sector, is that engagement is this measure of culture, of trust, of communication styles, developmental opportunities, all these things that are important to the generations that are coming into the workforce. And what's interesting now is that the workforce is actually changing. So seeing that the agencies are taking the engagement score so seriously is a refreshing thing. Now it's the next level as to how do they incorporate it into the changing world of work, right? So no longer are we going to be talking about employee engagement, but we're going to be talking about employee integration. And how do you actually integrate the employee into the actual work and vice versa. And so there's going to be an interesting time here as we start to transition into the changing world of work. And I think it's going to have some great effects on the workforce.
All right, so we've been talking about engagement, and now integration is kind of the next step. Maybe we should take just a step back and talk about what we mean by engagement, or at least what are the signs that you have it. And Julie, since you have also a cross-government look from OPM, tell us how OPM sees it.
Sure. As I mentioned, the employee engagement is from the EVS is broken up into 3 sub-indices: leaders lead, supervision, and intrinsic work experience. But what's really exciting is some research that OPM's completed recently around what drives engagement. So this driver analysis really can tell agencies and work unit supervisors and managers what to do, what actions to take. And the 5 areas that drive engagement are work life, allowing maximum flexibilities for the work environment, training and development, being concerned about someone's career growth and development, collaborative management, so including your employees in making decisions, ensuring you're communicating regularly and as much information as possible, as well as ensuring fair work environments, and the merit system principles are considered, as well as leadership. So there are certainly things that a supervisor can do based on that driver analysis that can break down that big construct of engagement.
And Tawanda, as an agency, as representing an agency where the scores have come up in a measurable way year to year, what is your sign of engagement? How do you know people are engaged? What's the definition of it?
Well, it's the employee's heightened sense of their involvement in the workplace. If it's their connectedness to the work. If they're connected to the work, and it's that heightened sense of their sense of, connected to their supervisor, do they have trust in their leadership? If they don't have trust in the leadership, and that the leaders have them in mind, and that they can come to work and do what they have come in to do, and that the leadership is invested in them, that they will get the training that they need to do their jobs, and that the leaders will invest in the competency development, that they have career paths that will get them to the next level, that their succession planning, all of those types of things that will build their career paths in the organization, and that their leadership knows that that there's a developmental path for them, that they are able to do telework, that there's innovation in the workplace, they have computers, they have technology, all of those types of things, that they're able to come in, and there's an opportunity for a rotational assignment. At HUD, we have rotational assignment programs. We have senior executive development programs, just different types of development. Even at HUD, we have the deep dives. Our deputy secretary gets online every week and she has a question, and people are able to respond to those questions and put ideas out there, and she responds to them. It's that connection and the ability to actually reach out to leadership, and leadership responds. It's those kind of things, having those actual connections to other employees and to leadership. It's that day-to-day engagement with leadership and other employees, and actually knowing that the work that you do every day matters.
And Phil, at State Department, we know how you use the scores. What's your measure? What's your signs of engagement?
Well, I think Tawanda hit right on it. It's really how connected employees feel to the mission and purpose of the organization. And there's 2 questions that we look at very closely. I like the kind of work I do. I know how my work relates to the agency's goals and the priorities. And I think we benefit from the fact that the State Department has a global mission. And we're a relatively small workforce. We're only 25,000 American staff. We have about 45,000 foreign national staff, but relatively small agencies. So people feel connected, and they see their leadership on a recurring basis. And for example, it's from the top down. Secretary Kerry, as much as he is all over the world, he's in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia. We read about him in the press, but he takes the time to do the people events. So just one example: every year he hosts all of the children of employees who are on unaccompanied tours in very dangerous places where you cannot bring your family, but he brings them up to the historic Benjamin Franklin Room around the holidays times. There's gifts. They all take a picture sitting with him. So our leadership takes the time to engage with employees. Deputy Secretary Higginbottom is the chair of our Work-Life Wellness Council, trying to find ways where we can make, balance the significant amount of work that people are doing with their own family lives. And I think, though, that the people are connected, some of the passion, the work that we do because of its global nature, and we have some challenges. We're in 270 places around the world, so the workforce is very dispersed. But because what we do is really the global mission to help citizens of foreign countries, improve their economic standing, to counter violent extremism, to human rights, all of this wide-ranging mission, people feel very, very connected, and they see their leadership in action. And I think that's what that really does it.
And Jeff, at Transportation, you've got some really big bureaus that are almost like agencies in themselves, and you've got some small pieces. How do you tie it together and try to unify the thought of what is engagement?
Sure. For us, engagement is really measured. I think Tawanda and Philip both hit the nail on the head. It's really defined by how connected our employees feel to the mission of the department. And it's also measured, and something that we're really pushing quite forcefully is our own connection as leadership to our employees. And so we're looking at a number of different opportunities to actually engage. And we think that starts right on day one. And so we're currently working with our friends at the Partnership for Public Service to develop an onboarding program for senior executives so that on day one, they're connected not only to their jobs and their specific role, but to the overall mission of the department. We've done a number of programs for administrative staff and for folks who are looking to aspire one day to be in the senior executive service. Really showing that we're connected and engaged with our employees around their careers, around their own professional development.
All right, so it sounds like those scores equal a homework assignment for management, if nothing else. On that note, we'll take a short break here. Our guests today are Julie Brill, the Manager of Work-Life Leadership and Executive Development Policy at the Office of Personnel Management. Philip Lucier is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for the Bureau of Human Resources. Jeff Marudian, the Assistant Secretary of Administration at the Transportation Department. Tawanda Brooks, the Chief Human Capital Officer at Housing and Urban Development. And Steve Doborowski, Principal for Thought Leadership and Advisory Services at Cornerstone On Demand. I'm your moderator, Tom Temin. This is a panel discussion, Enhancing Employee Engagement, Best Practices for Government, sponsored by Cornerstone On Demand here on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com.